finally. But let's get to the other big story. The Supreme Court has deferred the hearing in the Vodafone Idea AGR dues case to the 26th of September, 1 week from now. Ashmit is here with more details on what transpired in the court. Ashmit.
Well, major relief coming in for telecom player Vodafone Idea. The government batting squarely in defense of Vodafone Idea, asking for support for indulgence of the Supreme Court to bring about some form of solution to this Vodafone crisis. This is the first time that the government is openly rooting for Vodafone Idea, citing its own status as an equity shareholder in the company to as high as 49%. Now, this is not the first time that Vodafone Idea has filed a petition seeking relief as far as AGR issue is concerned. What is different, however, is the stance of the government. Previously, the best that Vodafone Idea got, like in the month of May, is the DoT, is the government being neutral, neither batting for or against any such relief, leaving the matter to the wisdom of the court. And as we've seen previously, the court had rejected previous such applications. Now, however, for the very first time, the government is squarely batting for relief, saying that they are equity shareholders. The facts on the ground have changed, that the situation demands some kind of solution, some kind of intervention, that the government is willing to work on some form of solution to address this issue of Vodafone Idea. The concern, of course, being that Vodafone Idea is a part of its petition saying that if this relief is not granted, it will threaten the existence. The company will go under. So clearly, relief being asked for by centre in favour of Vodafone Idea. The Supreme Court for now willing to hear the DoT, willing to Vodafone Idea further. The hearing, we understand, will resume next week on Friday.
Okay, Ashmit, thank you very much for that. The stock has come off from the highs. It's still holding up with a gain of nearly about 7%, but a little bit of a cool-off from the time when the news was announced. I mean, the fact that there is no outright dismissal by the Supreme Court should be read positively. But whether the company is saying that, the government is saying that we're okay with, we're not opposing a relief only on the 9,450 crore plea that was in front of them, or are they even open with it for the larger dues, which are in excess of 50,000 crores? There are lots of question marks to see how this plays. The government is an invested party. They have a 49% stake in the company, and relief we'll have to see in what form. There are multiple ways. One, maybe the moratorium can get extended. Two, even the timeline for payment, I think they have about 5-6 years from now on. By March 2030 or March 2031, they have to make the payments. Maybe they can say, you can extend the payment. Don't give a moratorium, but extend the duration for which the payments can be done. Maybe the government looks at converting more equity, more of the dues into equity. So relief, if the government wants to push for it, can come in different forms. So we'll have to wait to see. But for now, Vodafone Idea is hopeful. Shareholders are seeing a bit of a relief with the stock surging close to about 7% For a weekend, let's talk about Vodafone Idea and whether one should really read into the government statement at the Supreme Court. We're not opposing the Vodafone Idea plea, but some solution is required. The government is also an equity holder, 49% stake. Shiju, PV, Senior Managing Partner at IndiaLaw, is now with us on the show. Thank you for joining in. Share your first comments. Were you a part of the proceedings?
I'm not a part of the proceeding. My first comment would be a welcome step from the government side, because this has been a long overdue, and this is third or fourth litigation going on in this matter. So it is an opportunity for the government to see more than a litigation, to come up with some proper policy framework, which is the need of the hour.
So should we expect some relief is coming from the government?
Yeah, government currently already holding, as you know, it's already a 49% government holding, and any change in stand or change in policy stand of the government should be applicable to the entire spectrum, entire sector, not just to Vodafone Idea. But looks like there is a different view. One is DoT's demand, all issues coming out of the fresh demand made by the DRT for around 9,500 crore. And a part of that amount, the demand also goes back to the 2017 year period, which was already crystallized by the 2019 order of the Supreme Court. So seems like there is also another view from the government, since there should be some policy correction, there should be a revisiting. So I expect some kind of a change in stand by the government in the next week.
Gopal Jain, senior lawyer at the Supreme Court, is also joining in. Mr. Jain, would you read this as a change in stance from the government? Because the government has taken steps to resuscitate a Vodafone Idea. First it was an entire policy which provided relief in the first place 4 years back. Then they converted some of their dues into equities, which is why they have 49% stake. So what has changed right now, in your mind, based on what's happened today, from the government's point of view and the stance? Mr. Jain?
So first, I think it's a positive step because we are in an era where resolution is very important. Issues should not be simmering. All sectors need stability. The telecom sector particularly has gone through a lot of upheaval in the past. Second, I think we should wait for a week when the government will come up with its proposal or plan of action to be able to be tabled before the court and for further discussion. And three, the very fact that the government has itself now infused equity by converting the loan into equity makes it a stakeholder. So to that extent, it's wearing two caps. And perhaps it's in this context that it is going to come up with some constructive formula or suggestion or practical way forward to address the issue. So I read it overall as the sentiment is positive. And if matters can be resolved, I think that will be a welcome.
But Mr. Jain, the government has been converted its dues into equity a while back. Despite that, the recent Supreme Court hearings, we haven't seen, have been dismissed by the Supreme Court. I may be wrong, but it just appears that it's not that the government has just converted its dues into equity. It's been a while. So, and yet from the Supreme Court, we haven't, whenever the government has, made its plea, we haven't heard this kind of language.
It's not a timing issue. As I said to you, if you go with resolution in mind, like today when we have a mediation act, the idea is to resolve matters. So I think it's always good for a policymaker to come with a constructive suggestion before the court. And then once the suggestion is placed before the court, we will have greater clarity. And then one can discuss what that proposal is and how viable it is and feasible it is. So I think we should do it in two steps, but it's a welcome move.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Jain, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. My question is for the not very deeply those who are not following this very deeply, what the government lawyer said in court today, how is that different from their stance earlier? Because they said in court that the position has changed. The situation has changed. So just wanted that. How was what was this position then, and what is the position? What is the new position now?
You're asking me?
Yes, Mr. Jain.
Yes. No, I think I would look at it the other way around. I would look at it that the government has told the court, look, we are going to come back with something for your consideration. So please defer the matter to a week from today. What that proposal is, as I said a few minutes ago, once it's stable, we'll have greater clarity on what it is. And the change, as I've indicated earlier, was the fact that it has itself converted loan into equity. Perhaps it also thinks that the sector needs three viable and strong players. And there could be a variety of such factors which the government as a policymaker could consider, while it's also donning the cap of a quasi-stakeholder at the moment. So I think the most important thing is the positive intent shown towards moving forward and resolving these issues rather than letting these be open-ended. I think that's the message that I take away from today's hearing and the suggestion made by the government.
So I'm not asking you what we should expect in terms of a proposal from the government, but typically how will this work? I think, Mr. Jain, if I can bring in Shiju as well, I think he wants to come in. Shiju, go on.
See, there is clearly a change in government stand. In fact, the government changed the earlier dues into equity quite some time back. But earlier petition came up, it was predominantly a DOT view was going on in the government side because we have the sovereign dues pending, we need to collect it. But it's been some time that discussion happened, a lot of petition. And now government also thinking two things, multiple discussions, multiple thought processes going on government's mind. One is the duopoly issue. There is already a lot of debate happened. We also had earlier debate regarding how a telecom infrastructure sector, already we have an issue in airline sector. Similarly, in telecom sector, how bad it will be a duopoly. That thought process is already a lobbying is happening on that side, in government side. Similarly, another side, government also holding a stake. Now it is also not just a DOT interest, it's also a government stakeholder. So there is a change in policy now, government considering only take the money or a due sovereign due only. It's also now thinking from an overall perspective, how to save the sector as such, and how to streamline the revenue. So I think currently the way now the GST regime is changing, similarly, I think and this policy side also, there is a change in thought process. A policy decision might be coming.
It's also, as you said, the timing of it, right? The 4-year moratorium for which Vodafone Idea has to start repaying the AGR dues in installments is up in March 2026. So maybe so far the government had a hands-off approach, saying that the company Vodafone Idea will be able to raise the bank debt or external form of funding, some QIP equity fundraise. But since that is not transpired and the deadline is now approaching, March 2026 is when Vodafone Idea needs to start repaying the AGR dues after the 4-year moratorium comes to an end. Since that is approaching, they have very little time. So it's, we've just come to the threshold. It's do or die. Mr. Jain, would you like to make some final comments?
No, I think, as I said, let's wait for a week to have greater clarity. And once we know what the package on the table is, I think we can have a more informed discussion on that. Otherwise, it would be kind of speculating at the moment. But I think the intent is positive. That's the takeaway for today.
Intent is positive. And Gopal, Mr. Jain, what Shiju said, right, so far, the differentiation he made is that, according to him, so far the government was following the DOT view that we need to collect these dues. And now that seems to have kind of changed a little bit. Would you go that far?
And like I said, this would be second guessing something. So it's much better to know everything before commenting on it. But yes, always taking a wider sectoral perspective, a holistic view of things is always a welcome set. Practical, pragmatic approach always wins the day.
No, 100%. Only thing is, after so many, days in the court arguing one side, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of.
As you said, the first time they've gone ahead, they're going to approach with a resolution in mind.
You can treat it like a second innings in a cricket match.
Absolutely, and I think that's well put. Shiju, you want a last word quickly?
Yeah, so I have been telling much earlier discussion also, where government has to intervene with a policy decision, it has to act with the policy. A court proceeding should not be used for a policy as a replacement for policy. Finally, I hope government will come up with a final policy in this regard to save the sector.
I remember that last conversation where you made that point. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in, both Mr. Jain and Shiju. Get into a break on that note with the news that the Nifty is still down about 65 points. On the other side, the sharp